Hello, welcome to Warrior Whispers. I'm John. I'm the author of Cedar Grove MacArthur, the Spy of Spies novel, and also the author of Tasking of Leadership, Military Training and Education. Not sponsored or endorsed by any military branch of service or U.S. government agency. I hope you all woke up this morning with some energy and clarity, and if you're a person of faith, said your prayers not only for yourself, but for your family, loved ones, friends, co-workers, and those around the world. Wow, what a great day here on the East Coast, August 23rd, 10:30 in the morning. Slight haze, 74 degrees, nice cool breeze. I don't know if you can see the trees swaying, but it's a nice cool breeze. That being said, guess what? Great day to get outside, go for a hike, go for a bike, go for a swim, go for a run, go for a jog, go for a walk. But remember, life's about forward progression in all that you do to achieve your goals and dreams. Forward progression. Get there. Be productive each and every day. All right, what do I have for you today? I have about military leadership. It's a little bit from my book, Operation United Shield, Enemies Within the Wire, coming out in September. A lot of questions about leadership, how you should go about leadership. And I can give you my experiences and how I saw things in the 90s as a leader, as an NCO, and how, leadership gets developed in different positions, right? But let's talk about, before you get into the Marine Corps, before you get into your branch of service, know a little bit about your branch of service. I've seen in my time Marines just not do well in boot camp. And it's not because they really didn't, maybe a very minute few might have not done well because they just genetically couldn't do it. And that's understandable. They tried more than what anyone else would do. So I respect them for trying. But others just didn't really read up on their knowledge of their branch of service. Like before you sign up, or when you sign up and you take your ASVAB or whatever it is, you should be already know what your branch of service has to offer, the history of the service, some key players of your branch of service, some Medal of Honor, some Bronze Stars, some Silver Stars, NCOs that stand out during the history of your branch of service. These things are important or key to help you understand what you're about to embark. You're signing 4 years of your life over to a government, right? And when I mean life, your life in their hands. All right? There's no option just to walk away. You're committed. You sign that contract, you take an oath, you're there. It's not like college where you sign up, you withdraw, and you leave or whatever. No, there's no withdrawal option in the military. You sign the contract, you're obligated, you took an oath, and they will keep you there as long as they can. Sure, there's ways to get out, but it's not going to be easy, and it's going to take a couple years. And that could be a real painful couple years, okay? So let's get back to what you should know before you go to boot camp. You should know a little, and I'm not talking go in depth, do research papers, all that. If you want to, that's great, but I'm saying just brush over what you're about to embark on. What is it that you want to do? Understand your job, what role. If you don't know what you want to do, at least know what your history of the branch of service you're signing up for. At least read 2 books on your branch of service before you go in. Watch some credible videos of your branch of service, meaning some credited authors, like, you can go to the History Channel. And sometimes even there you have to be careful, but go to some, your branch of service website, and they got videos on all sorts of things now. Back in the day, not so much, but now you can go to your branch of service website and they got videos on training, on what they do. At least get some concept of what you're about to do, about what you're about to embark on. Very, very key. I can't stress that enough, and I think I did here now, right? So the other 2 things is, I get emails all the time, John, I really want to get up in leadership, and how do I get there? Very simple. You have to know 2 things as a warrior. Two things. You have to have good judgment, and you have to be effective. Two things. That's all you need in the beginning of leadership. Good judgment and being effective. Those are the two things other leaders are looking at to promote others to leadership positions. Good judgment. Does this warrior have good judgment to lead? And is he effective? Two things. That's all it is. But they're a lot. The substance of each one is a lot, right? What do I mean by that? It means you have to understand not only the warrior job and function that you're in and the rank of which you're in at that time, but you're going to have to start reading, right? Up on the next level if you want to get there. You want to start observing other leaderships to the next rank of what you want to achieve, right? And I tell warriors, the military is a team, right? It's one big team. One big team. And everyone's a team player. Everyone's on the same sheet of music, right? But there's periods of time where you have to be a little selfish. The bottom line. You can't always be a team player when you're in the team. I don't know if that makes sense. When you're in the team, when you're on the battlefield, or when you're in a training environment, you're a team player at that point. That means you're working with the knowledge and skills that you achieved in the past, right? But to progress, you got to learn more. So how I got promoted, and I was meritorious promoted a few times. I self-promoted by reading, understanding the knowledge, what I needed to be in the next rank, working out extra overtime. When warriors would go out on the weekends, right? They're going out, they're partying, or going to see whatever. I was out hiking. One weekend, I would go out and do some land navigation to strengthen my skills. I go on a run to improve my time. And these were voluntary things I did on my time. And all those skills only improved and reinforced my job as a warrior, right? But what I was doing, I was self-educating myself. I was reassuring myself. I was demonstrating and not being afraid of saying, hey, I need to get stronger in my run time. It was good. Not going to lie, my run time was already good, but I could do better. And how do I can do better? Is practice more, right? Same thing with other areas of my job. I took time out of my time, and now sometimes you can't do that, right? Sometimes you don't have enough time, right? Which is, I don't think it's true, but for the argument's sake, you're really, really busy, and the military life is, don't get me wrong, you're way more busier than civilian life. But another way is, when I say be a little selfish, is, you might have to remove yourself from some friends every now and then and work on things like running, whatever areas your weekend, land navigation, or whatever it is, patrolling, whatever. You're going to have to remove yourself from every now and then. I'm not saying every weekend, but you got to set time aside for that. Now, also, I signed up and volunteered for schools outside my unit, right? I went to primary marksmanship instructor school. I went to military operations and urban terrain school, right? And I was away from my unit for about 8 weeks at a time. I could go to school, come back after 8 weeks, and then rejoin my unit. And other warriors would say, well, John, didn't you, miss your team and, the unity? What do you mean? I'm coming back to my knowledge and skills when I was away, what I learned is going to strengthen the team, is going to build a better team than it was a month ago or 8 weeks ago, right? So you got to think that way, right? You got to think, what can I do to better the team? And sometimes that's removing yourself and applying. And I'm not saying go and vegetate in front of it and watch movies all day long. That's ridiculous, right? But not that that could happen. But certain ranks, probably. But you want to become a leader, and not only a good leader, but an effective leader. You're going to have to take some time for yourself and apply it in other areas. Learn, educate, come back and teach your unit what you learned and educate. That's the whole point, right? So, again, where do you get the good judgment? Is you have to use your brain, right? One good judgment would be, should I go out Saturday with my friends, go to Anaheim Park and go to the park and enjoy a great day with my friends? Or do I need to go out for a run and improve my run time? Do I need to go out and do some more land navigation so I'm just a little bit more effective in it than I was a month ago or a week ago? Though that is good judgment. And to your friends, it might not be. And I don't understand that, because most of my buddies in the Marine Corps, they, didn't give me any grief for it. Did I miss out on some great moments? Sure. But a job as a warrior is, number one, is make sure I stay alive. And how do I do that? Make sure I learn as much as I can and be effective at my job. Because that's going to keep me alive. If that keeps me alive, it keeps my team alive. If it keeps my team alive, it will keep my unit alive as much as possible. And that's how you have to think. That's called good judgment. The other one is being effective. You can go to school and come back and not be effective if you don't implement what you learn and share it with the rest of your team or unit. And that's stupid. You're going to remove yourself from your unit for 8 weeks and then come back and join them again and not share that knowledge, or you just don't want to do it because you don't want to be teaching. That's ridiculous. Don't go then, right? Just be that baseline warrior that will get you through to your contract ends, right? And that's dangerous. But in the Marine Corps, it's tough to do that. In the Marine Corps, they're always about forward progression. You could try to be weak. I shouldn't say weak, but you can try to be that baseline, just get past, just get by. Not going to happen in the Marine Corps. If you have that mentality, you are going to have a rough 4 years, 6 years, 8 years of your contract. If you make it, right? And if you don't make it, they're going to kick you out and put the terms called failure to adapt to Marine Corps standards. And you don't want that stamped on your DD-214, your exit papers. It's not a good thing, right? But some don't care, right? Everyone has a goal of why they're in the military. But in the Marine Corps, your main goal is to stay alive. That's the only goal you have in the Marine Corps, is to stay alive. The only way you're going to stay alive is start educating yourself. Take some moments and educate yourself. On a weekend, study some NCO guidelines. If you want to be an NCO, ask for an NCO book. Read it. Start implementing it. Even though you're a Lance Corporal, it doesn't matter, right? Start showing some leadership capability. Start showing good judgment and how effective you are. You don't have to do the whole list. Pick 1 or 2 items and focus on that for a few weeks, for a few months, whatever it is you want to do. You're not at that promotion level yet, that time and grade, right? Every rank has a time and grade, the maximum amount of time in that rank, and then you get automatically promoted to the next. But that could be a long, long time. I've seen people in Lance Corporal in 4 years and get out. They never made it to NCO status. right? For me, it was luckily less than a year for almost all the way up to my NCO status. So, I was meritorious promoted. That's because I studied. I took time away from friends, and on a weekend, I studied all weekend. And then Monday came back to training, right? But if you want to get there, you got to do the time. You got to self-educate yourself, okay, on that. So you got good judgment and being effective. Those are the two things that you need to start to advance in your leadership position, okay? If you don't have either of those, you're just not going to make it into a leadership position. In fact, if you don't have good judgment, you're probably going to have a lot of issues in the Marine Corps and probably finding yourself being transferred once or twice or 3 times throughout your 4-year contract. Good judgment is key in all that you do, right? I can see the effectiveness, but if you got bad judgment, you're going to have a rough time if you make it to your contract end date, right? So focus. So get some books. My leadership books, Tasking of Leadership, they're straight to the point. They're about 30, 40, 60 pages. They're nothing crazy. I made them small number of pages, so you're not reading a 200-page book, okay? It's direct to the point. There's no fluff. It tells you point A to point B to C. There's some stories in there that help you reflect on what you read, to understand it. Great book. If you can't read 30, 40, 60 pages of stuff, then you got a problem. But again, these my training books are meant to be direct. Take out the fluff, and because I know you don't have the time, right? Do you have time to read a 200-page book? Well, you might not, but they're good reference guides as well. Okay, and that's why I made them 30, 40, 60 pages, some of them, because you can use them as a reference. There's no other thing in there than what the knowledge I'm trying to teach you is in that book. So it's to the point, it's direct. You don't have to go here, there, and all, the different pages. It's written out. You can mismatch things in there. It doesn't have to go in order exactly, because every leadership is different in there. But my books are to the point, they're direct, and they're meant to be broken down easily and for you to understand, okay? Now, some of the things in my books might not work for you as a leader, but it might work for other leaders. So you kind of have to, you're going to learn a few things out of my books, if not all. But if you don't learn, you're going to learn at least 2-3 things out of my Tasking of Leadership books that are going to work for you. Okay, so I encourage you to at least try one, see how you like it, leave me a comment. But I think it's important to remind you that to be a leader, you have to make sure good judgment and being effective. That is it. The rest will come into play. They will fall in order if you have good judgment and being effective. You need those two. If you're missing one or the other, it's just you're not going to be a good leader. You need to have both to be a good leader, right? Now, some say, well, what makes good judgment? Learning, training, practicing. Get out there, come up with a plan. You got to practice on your ideas, okay? And I don't mean practice with real live ammunition, or just go out and practice the knowledge base, right? You don't need weapons, you don't need grenades, use, rolled up paper towels as a grenade, go out there, use, whatever, sticks for, like you were a kid, use sticks for a rifle, whatever. But go out there and take a team, take a squad, go out there and practice on your concepts. You come up with an idea, come up with a plan. Is it good? I don't know. Hey guys, do you mind taking an hour and coming with me? I got an idea on. They are going to go with you. Or find, mismatch. It's not about if you have a mismatched squad that not everybody's going to go on your time, but you can get some from, maybe a different platoon, but get 12, whatever the requirement is of your idea. Try to get as close of a number as you can, and just play it out. See how it goes. See where things going wrong. Right? But when you do that, don't expect your team that you put together, if you mismatch them, or even your own team, to give 100%, because it's on your time and they're kind of, so, you got to make that into a factor. So don't focus on their effectiveness. Focus on your idea of what you're trying to do. Maneuver, navigation, whatever it is, call signs, whatever it is you're trying to do, fire maneuver. But don't focus on the troops' effectiveness, because they're you're borrowing time away from them as well. So at that point you're really focused on your concept, your idea. Is this movement right? Is this execution going to be effective? Is it kind of right? That's what you're playing on. You want to get out the things that don't work in your plan as much as you can. Once you do that once or twice, then you're going to go into a real training evolution, right? And that's where you can measure the effectiveness of your troops at that point to your plan and idea. But when you're just brainstorming at that point, it's not about the effectiveness of your troops. It's about your concept and idea and the order in which your plan is going to be executed, right? So I see a lot of leaders get so upset when they take 12 Marines on their time and saying, I'm trying to make this realistic as possible. That's not the point. That's not the time there. Your time is to take those 12 Marines on their time that they're taking away, that you're asking them to take away, right? And to go out and carry out your concept and idea of a plan or an objective. But you can't measure their effectiveness at that point in time, because it's just not what that moment is for, right? That moment is for, is my plan solid? Is my whatever you're doing correct? And in which order is it correct? Not about how effective your guys are, because it's new to them. They don't know what they're doing. They're just following your orders, and it's something that could be first time ever before done, or it could be taking an original concept and changing it up into a different execution phase, to a different reordering structure, whatever it is. So they're not familiar with it. So don't get caught up in, guys, you're not really being that effective. No, you're lucky if you're going to get 50% out of it, right? But again, at that point, when you're brainstorming and when it's your first phase, you're borrowing on their time. Don't focus on the effectiveness of the carry out of the instructions. What you want to do is focus on, is my concept sound? Is it physically capable of doing what I need it to do in the order in which I need to do it, right? Is it putting anyone at risk if I move them this way or echelon that way, echelon right, echelon left? Is envelopment, what are you trying to achieve is concept at the first level. Once you work that concept out and everything looks good, then start trying to plan for a real training session. And when you do a real training session, that's where you can say, hey guys, I need 100% or more of your effort here, right? And sometimes when that happens, it doesn't go well the first 2-3 times, right? Because they're learning as well, right? But you can't just hold a training session, a live training session on Marine Corps time without really understanding your concept and idea. Is it going to work? Right? So there's a lot of preparation. That's good judgment. And that's a lot just in itself, right? Now, once you have the good judgment down, right? Once you have a concept and an idea, and good judgment means, are you making sound decisions in the best interest of the Corps, of yourself, and of the Marines that you have underneath, and the objective. So there's 4 things there, right, that you have to make sure you good judgment. 1 is for the Corps, right? 2 is to the unit. 3 is for yourself, and 4 is about the objective. You got to make 4 good judgment calls, and then work on the effectiveness, right? So that's how you be effective. Good judgment, the 4 things, what's best for the Corps, what's best for the unit, what's best for yourself, and what's best for the objective. Those are the 4 things that are going to make you effective being a warrior. Okay. And I have some Marines say, well, in that good judgment, you got what's best for the Corps, what's best for the unit, and what's best for yourself. And they say, well, isn't it self, like not team? No. So what's best for yourself, again, going back to being a little selfish, is you got to be in a position to be able to carry out and execute your plan or idea or objective, right? So if you're not taking care of yourself, basic as a warrior, then you can't lead. It's just simple. It's common sense, right? And then you got to include an objective if there is an objective, right? There's always an objective. Just like there's always a motive, right? When a Marine walks, talks, shouts, there's a motive. Marines rarely talk on base, like walking, we don't talk and walk. We don't smoke and walk. If you smoke, you don't run on base. If you're doing things as a Marine, if you're talking, you're speaking, giving a lecture, you're doing something for a motive. There's a reason. The reason I'm talking is because I want you to learn. The reason I'm running is because I want you to run, right? I want you to be in good shape. Marines execute things. We have motives each and every day. We don't have fluff. We don't have gossip. We don't have lounges. We don't have, we do things for a reason. We do things with a motive, right? And there's always an ulterior motive to what we do as well. I might have a motive, but I also have an ulterior motive to get you to do things that I need you to do in a way that I want you to do them in, right? So sometimes I have to have an ulterior motive to get you to point A to point B, but my ulterior motive is to actually to get you to point C, right? In a time frame in which I made you move from A to B. I always get this when we were doing hikes out there, we call humps, or patrolling packages. Why are we hiking over this distance in this amount of time to point A to point B? This is ridiculous. We should, because there's an ulterior motive. If I can get you to A to B faster, I can start planning and for C, right? So if I can move you from point A to point B quicker than what's required, I can get you to point C beforehand and then make additional plans for the objective. So Marines always have a motive and an ulterior motive of things that we do, especially in leadership positions, right? Doesn't make sense because there's a reason why it doesn't make sense. And that's, some people say, doesn't that frustrate Marines? It frustrates anyone. I don't care. My main primary focus is the objective. I don't care how you feel. I don't care if you bitch. I don't care if you gripe. I don't care if you whatever it is, I don't care. What I do care about is the objective. As a leader, my job is to get you to that objective. How I do it, I don't care. As long as it's safe and as long as I'm using good judgment to get you to that objective, it's all that matters. And that's where the trust in leaders is that good judgment. Okay? It's no different than you giving the keys to your kid and saying, all right, go down the shore, it's 2 hours. There's nothing you can do once you hand them the keys, right? You got to trust in how you raised them, how you taught them, how you trained them to be able to make it to point A to point B without you. And that's the same thing on the battlefield. When a commander says, hey, first platoon, I need you to point C by 4 o'clock. And if I can get you to point A to point B by 2:30 and then to point C by 3, I have an additional hour to do some reconnaissance and extra planning, right? So that's very, 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 very important. All right, talked enough. Hope you learned a little bit, give you some insight on things. Any questions, any comments, feel free to go to my author site, links in the YouTube bio, click on it, and have a great, great rest of your Sunday. I hope you're all doing well, and remember, forward progression. Until next time.